defense upgrades, trade realignments, and the big strategic bets that could define the next decade of India-Russia ties. Let's discuss this with Brigadier Rumel Dahiya. He's a defense veteran and the former Deputy Director General of the MPIDSA. And Sangeeta Godbole as well is with us. She's a former trade negotiator. Great to have you both with us. Brigadier, as Putin now arrives amid a shifting global order, what's the real strategic weight of this visit for essentially India's defense posture? Is this simply continuity? Are we seeing India pushing for a reset in terms of technology and access and co-production with Russia?
Thank you for having me on your show. It goes without saying that Mr. Putin's visit to India is significant. It's not only symbolic in the sense that Russia doesn't feel cut off from the world. Russia is not being ignored. Russia has friends. But even for us, it also is an exercise of strategic autonomy, that we are honoring Putin's visit to this place and will be signing many substantive agreements, it seems. As far as defense is concerned, you know that our dependence on Russia for defense equipment has been going down over a period of time. As a measure of prudent sort of policy to diversify our imports, but more importantly, now more and more indigenization effort to achieve self-sufficiency in defense production is the goal. And therefore, we have been emphasizing that even when we need certain critical technologies from abroad, we should be focusing on joint development and joint production of military equipment. Because that not only helps both sides mitigate the developmental costs, but also helps in integrating technologies of both sides and also develops a long-term defense relationship. So I think India-Russia relationship in defense particularly ticks all these boxes.
Right.
Russia has certain things, like, for example, fifth generation Su-57E aircraft. Russia has S-500, not only air defense, but anti-ballistic missile and anti-hypersonic systems. Russia has anti-stealth radars, zircon hypersonic weapons, and many other things like that.
Right.
And BrahMos has actually given us a template as to how this joint development of weapon systems can benefit both the countries. Now, many countries are buying BrahMos from India. And obviously, Russian components are also there on it.
Yes.
So I think there is much to look forward to, despite the fact that we will be focusing more not on outright purchases, although some outright purchases of additional S-400 weapon systems will definitely be considered. But I think we'll be focusing more and more on joint development and joint production of weapon systems.
So this joint... Yes, this joint development is an important piece for the entire defense manufacturing push that India is angling for. But on the economic side, Sangeeta Godbole, India's trade with Russia has surged, but it remains heavily skewed, like I said, towards oil imports. And when you look at the trade imbalance, you know, the top moving items both ways is this kind of, this kind of imbalance that strikes you. You think that's sustainable, or you think India is going to enter tomorrow's meeting with a leverage of its own to kind of structure the imbalance more in its favor?
Yes, so we do have imbalanced trade with Russia, largely because of our energy imports. And we have used the Russian, fallout with the West quite well for our energy imports. And we at this point, we do not have a choice but to import energy. But I think with this FTA, this free trade agreement, that the terms have been signed in August, I think there can be some rays of hope, because this FTA is with the Eurasian Union, EAEU, and its members are Russia, Armenia, Belarus, Kazakh, and Kyrgyzstan. And in that case, India is hoping to import fertilizers, because that is, again, one thing we are quite heavily dependent on imports, and we need fertilizers for our agriculture. But we also hope to sell our favorite, one of our best sectors, which is pharma, textiles, consumer products, and certain agricultural goods such as fisheries products and potato. And we hope that this will bring some kind of balance in the India-Russia trade. But I suspect that due to our heavy energy imports and our dependence on those imports with Russia, we are going to still face a negative balance with Russia.
So despite that kind of push that one might have on whether it's about fisheries or whether it's about pharma, like you're pointing out, that imbalance is going to stay. How much of that agenda can be covered in this particular negotiation that would ensue now that Putin himself is here will have to be tracked very closely. But talking about dependence, Brigadier, India's dependence on Russian military hardware, that has gone down. From the early 2000 levels, we have seen a decline, but still it is at a significant level. Since you mentioned the S-400, it's still being inducted and there is chatter around the S-500, but tell us if India's balancing of cutting-edge needs with all the geopolitical risks right now, this kind of over-reliance that we've had in Russia, if you're going to try and set that reliance down, is that going to set up any geopolitical risks according to you, since America has come down heavily, at least on the oil imports from Russia?
You see, it's very simple. America would want us to totally cut off from Russia. But then America would probably want every other country to cut off totally from Russia, and not only from Russia, but even from China and others. So in this trade, arms trade particularly, because profits are huge, and America in particular has huge companies like Boeing and others. So they would definitely not want us to continue purchasing quite a lot of equipment from Russia. But fact of the matter is that today, our procurement from Russia has come down to just about 1/3 of our imports, which shouldn't be worrisome to anybody.
Yes.
Secondly, if Americans think rightly, and if China is their geopolitical sort of contestant or competitor going forward, it's there even today, then India getting stronger by importing weapons from anywhere should be a welcome sign for America, rather than being, But I think once American and Russian relations are reset, and that probably depends quite a lot on peace process in the Ukraine succeeding. Once that happens, then I think this will become less of an irritant in Indo-US relations.
Correct.
Otherwise, of course, Americans can always say that CAATSA is applicable to anybody buying, costly equipment or in large numbers from Russia.
Yes.
But I don't think that America would be going that way, because going in that direction, because the fact of the matter is that India matters.
Right.
They can't just push India around, and we've been absolutely very balanced in our response to the enhanced tariffs against us.
Yes.
We have not been provocative. We have been very, very dignified in our response. And if America pushes too far, then I think we'll have to take a call and say thank you very much.
And yet there are these moving pieces. Like you mentioned, that a peace deal with Ukraine that Russia would have, we don't know how it's going to come about or when it's going to come about, but that's going to be an important piece to reset ties between India and Russia, like you said. Also, on the other hand, you have a US-India trade deal. A lot depends on that as well. But when you consider this import basket that India has with Russia, Sangeeta Godbole, when you talk about that import basket, there is crude oil and fertilizers and indeed defense parts, like Brigadier pointed out. All of these are politically sensitive. So you expect Delhi now to push Moscow for better pricing or currency settlement mechanisms. We're talking about rupee settlements. Long-term energy commitments, are those likely to come up in this visit? How much of that agenda on the import side can India push with Russia?
So if you have seen the MEA statement, it's a very terse statement, and it just talks about the strategic partnership, the special strategic partnership, I think they call it. But I suspect that there is signaling from India as well as Russia in this meeting. I wonder if the FTAs that Trump signed or the Americans signed with Cambodia, Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia did not sign, the sheer inequity in that FTAs, I wonder if India realized that, look, if you want to sign something with the US, you have to push the US in the right direction. Otherwise, we will never be able to sign these kind of FTAs, which are, absolutely, I've written in one of my these things that we have actually they have thrown sovereignty out the window with these FTAs. So therefore, I think this is signaling to the US as well that look, this sudden meeting of Putin coming here and India appearing to go close to the Russians, that is also telling Putin that please hold your horses, take it easy, and let us conclude a deal quickly. Otherwise, India has many other options, and India is not going to bend the way the Swiss or the Europeans or Japan and now these East Asian countries have been. So I think there are more than one birds being hit by this one stone in this visit.
So if that is going to be the stance, while we have you, Sangeeta Godbole, because free trade agreements is something that India is pushing in a big way. So talking about this 40-member EU delegation of negotiators who are arriving in India tomorrow for discussions, and the EU representative is going to meet the Commerce Secretary. How close do you think are we to striking that deal with the Europeans, and how favorable are the terms likely to be?
$1 million question as always, but this time round I really think we are serious about closing it by December. The signals that are going within the bureaucracy and all of that, I think we really want to do it. If India is going to get a fair deal, I think that, of course, our Commerce Minister has said repeatedly that we will want a fair, balanced and equitable agreement. And now it really depends on the Indian negotiators, how well can they push and how well can they entice the Europeans to sign a deal. And I must also say that, the minute many European think tanks start telling India that, it's a great to have a deal with EU and India would really benefit from doing a deal with EU, then you know that EU really wants a deal. And I think that point has really come. Perhaps this is the best time for EU and India to strike a deal. Now, how well both sides negotiate with each other and clamp down from their respective positions is what will ultimately decide whether this is signed in December.
Like you said, it sets the tone, as it were, and even as President Putin is set to land in India at about 6:30 in the evening tomorrow, the choices made now.
So that is a signal for EU as well, right? They
Exactly.
have been lecturing India on the Russia oil deal and our relationship, and exactly when the huge delegation is here and our Russian president is also, that is also another signal that is being sent.
So then we are looking at defense, diplomacy, trade. All of these could shape India's strategic space for several years to come. The kind of ties that India has had with Russia. Now we are setting and resetting that tone. The stakes are high. The talks could well decide how much India can secure and diversify and negotiate from a position of strength. But thank you, Brigadier and Sangeeta Godbole. Thank you both for your insights tonight here on Profit 360.